mythology rages to life in Mythic Battles Pantheon. Become a god and command heroes and monsters in a battle for Olympus at beastsofwar.com. Fame and fortune awaits in Blood and Plunder. Set sail in the golden age of piracy and claim the riches of the Caribbean at beastsofwar.com.
Hello everybody and welcome. I have been joined in the studio by Stu from Warcradle, and today we are talking Dystopian Wars.
We are.
So, what to ask, because this is a game I used to play a lot whenever we were over with you guys working and living in England. What happened?
What happened to Dystopian Wars?
Yeah.
So Dystopian Wars, popular game. Unfortunately, Spartan Games, who were the ones behind it, have hit on some difficult times.
Yes.
And they are no more now. But there was an opportunity, we thought, to step in, rescue the IP, because we loved Dystopian Wars.
Yeah.
Loved the idea behind it. And we also saw there was an opportunity to do something more with it, not just to continue pick up where Spartan had left off and just continue to trot it out. There was an opportunity to be a little bit braver, maybe, and make something more by combining it with the Wild West Exodus property and some other things that we had in the pipeline, and build it up into this dystopian age that we talk about.
The idea of intermeshing games, that it was kind of serendipitous that they matched quite so well, just with the style, the look and the feel and the factions that were already there.
Yeah.
It feels really nice that it's been able to interlink and gear together so nicely.
Yeah, though they have the same setting, though they have the same era that they're set in, the 1870s roughly. Yeah. Tonally, they're quite different because Wild West Exodus is very much a individual actions, heroism, that kind of thing, close up. Whereas Dystopian Wars is massively zoomed out, big battleships mashing against each other, clash of nations, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Where the common man, the individual actions are largely irrelevant. And similarly, in Jesse James, Wyatt Earp, that kind of scale of game, you don't really care about what the Prussians are up to. You don't really care about what the Russian Commonwealth is doing, and so on. So there was a slight tonal difference. Wild West Exodus is also, by its nature, it's weirder. It's got stranger things going on out in the Badlands. It is more about the fringe elements of that setting. Yeah. In Dystopian Wars, because it's so zoomed out, you had a lot less. You had a lot less of that small detail going on, because essentially it doesn't matter what the people look like and how strange they are. Big battleships are big battleships, and you're more focusing on the technology and the war machines rather than the actual people behind them. Yeah, that's the difference.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have had the good fortune to sit down and chat to Roberto, your art director, about the way he actually was looking to intermesh everything and actually keep the feel and flavor of a nation with like key design hooks and stuff. But I know you guys, and I know that, well, whenever you picked up Wild West Exodus, you guys basically popped the hood of the engine, stripped it down, and rebuilt it into something absolutely gorgeous. I'm wondering, are you doing the same kind of work with Dystopian Wars?
Yes.
That yes is I'm going to say yes, but I can't say much.
Well, I can say a little bit more, I suppose. Okay. So yes, we are changing Wild West Exodus as well, because it's not a case of just taking Dystopian Wars and cramming it into the Wild West Exodus setting and there you go. Wild West Exodus does need to have a slight readjustment. It focuses on America, so it doesn't really need to worry about the rest of the world. But now you are putting the Union on that world stage. Yeah, it does need a little bit of a tweak.
Yeah. So for Dystopian Wars, you are going to be retuning the engines and stuff.
Yeah. So because of that change with Wild West Exodus, we then move out to the wider world. Yeah. So with what we wanted to do, so there's some things we loved about Dystopian Wars, and we want to make more of. So we love the way that Dystopian Wars played. Yes. So we've been working very hard with some of the original game designers to make sure that we want that continuity. We want it to feel like a spiritual successor, so a proper third edition to the game, and it's not totally different, using D10s and the ships are moving around on like jet skis and stuff, and it's going to feel like the original Dystopian Wars, but there are aspects of it. As a game, we want it to play a little faster. We want it to be a little bit more intuitive as you play, a lot less math. So any maths involved really needs to be, the game needs to do a lot of the hard work for you, rather than you having to, so you get your dice pool, then you're, okay, so I've got to work out how much damage I've taken, and so minus that off, and then I've got to split the pool because I'm doing this, and I'm linking this weapon in. We've removed, those are still things that happen in the game, but the game does the calculations for you, rather than, there's a couple of mechanisms we use to make sure that the game does the hard lugging. The only math you ever have to do is adding simple addition. So I'm combining these weapons together, and each weapon has a particular number. That's the number of dice I'm rolling, that kind of thing. So it keeps the granularity, but you don't have to be the one picking through the grains.
So you're basically smoothing out the speed bumps from the old game. Because I did find there were moments when I was playing Dystopian Wars, I think it was 2nd edition I was playing, where you would come to a point of the game which is like, okay, and off we go again. You had that little moment of you had to step back from the table, and it kind of took you out of it. But if you're saying your game engine is now going to do that work for you, and it's going to keep you engaged a lot more, I think.
Yeah, and it's because of, there's two reasons behind it, and it's the same with what we did with Wildberries Exodus in reworking the Exodus's game engine. We want the narrative of the setting, the narrative of the game, and the rules to kind of be much more closely meshed together. You shouldn't be able to play Dystopian Wars and it to be a game that, I don't really have any idea on the background, and I don't really need to know anything about the background. I'm just going to be moving ships about. Because actually, you could play any naval game then. You could go and play a Second World War, First World War naval game, and that'd be the same. So the setting is important. So we wanted to bring more character into it, more of that rich background that we're building, so that there are some of the narrative links, some of the narrative way that Wildberries Exodus plays, some of those narrative choices are influencing in Dystopian Wars as well. So it isn't just hard numbers of a pseudo Victorian World War One naval game and that's it, and there's no, don't worry about the dystopian world around it. The dystopian world is absolutely present in every game that you'll be playing. Very
nice. Well, again, it gives you really great opportunities to actually build beautiful gaming tables, because if you're good at like your conversions, your scratch builds and stuff, you can actually do like coastlines and stuff. I mean, like Lloyd has a fantastic way to do like cliff faces and stuff that's scaled to any game using upholstery foam, of all things. I'll show you them when we're done. But we did a thing recently where we were playing an air combat game, and it's 1/200 scale. So we laid out all of our like coastline stuff, and then put like teeny weeny little houses and trees all along it. And actually seeing that laid out on the table just looked so good. And I think if you had like some of the weird and wonderful stuff from the Dystopian Age universe set out along those tables, like manufactories, things like that, you're going to have something that looks really amazing. So we want to have that, but also in terms of, in terms of the table, but also in terms of like your fleet composition. So one of the things that Dystopian Wars is going to be bringing in 3rd edition is the notion of patrons. So you have fleets. It isn't that there are these massive battle fleets just roaming the oceans and seeing if they bump into each other and then they're going to fight. Battle fleets are sent out to places. These battle groups are sent to places with a mission, with a purpose. And it might be that you're on patrol or something like that, but they're not just ambling about randomly. So in Dystopian Wars, what you'll be doing is you'll pick your patron, and your patron is the person that has, for want of a better word, sponsored the fleet. So it might be a senior fleet admiral. It might be a political agent. It might be, so for example, for the Union, it could be Abraham Lincoln. Could have Director Lincoln with the Secret Service. So he hasn't actually gone down to the docks, jumped aboard a ship and said, "With me, men." That's not how the patron system works. It's more about he has ensured that this particular fleet is on deployment at this particular place where your game is going to take place, because there's something else going on. There's another purpose behind what you're doing. Through the intelligence networks, he has heard there's something really bad about to happen down around the Panama Canal. Exactly. We might want to get a fleet down there to make sure this doesn't happen. That's exactly it. Or he may have discovered that there is a Styginium deposit that he's understood that the Celestian Empire are making a push on. Styginium?
Styginium.
Hmm.
Styginium
Is this the raw ore for RJ1027?
No. So Styginium is in the Dystopian Age is it's alien. It's an alien ore that has been deposited on the Earth by the Watcher starship, the Arc Vault in space that has crashed on the Earth, and it has as it's crashed, it has dropped part of its superstructure, part of the material that it carries, and it's seeded this ore on the Earth. That's where it's come from. Humanity has been able to, particularly with the Enlightened, the Covenant, they've been able to harness this ore and turn it to make these wonderful. Gotcha. Styginium can change other materials, other elements that it's in contact with, and so it can make metals which are quite light. It can make them tougher. Yeah. It can be used to make. So Nikola Tesla uses Styginium as part of his arc technology, part of his voltaic technology that uses Styginium. The metal casings that RJ is held in, those use Styginium. So the Styginium is a material that enables most of the Dystopian Age to happen. Yeah.
So you have the power source, which is the RJ, but you also have this Styginium, which is it sounds like a molecular recombination material of some sort.
It's got superconductive properties as well. I mean, like anything, there isn't just one, and it would be unrealistic to just have one wonder fuel or one wonder substance, and that's it. Everything else changes because of that. Well, we've got at least two, and they've then enabled things like atomic energy to start to be understood a little bit more. Yeah. They've enabled, let's say, the arc technology that Tesla is experimenting with. That's happened. Galvanic energy, so harnessing lightning, which is what the Countess does and others do. Yeah. There's all these different weird technologies are now starting to become available. So when you're looking at Dystopian Wars as a game, we can start to have some of that. So we know that the ships, for example, the ships could have all sorts of reactors. It's not just like big steam engines type thing. It could be, there could be some kind of very primitive atomic reactor in some of them. There could be RJ power power systems. It could be some kind of Tesla energy. There's all different things. So we, again, in terms of the background, reactor leaks are quite a bad thing now because and because you don't know what weird and wonderful propulsion system the ship has. There are things called outfitting cards, so there are upgrades that you can give your ships, so you can give them different power sources and different things, and that will start. So you're taking background material and you're applying that in the game because as upgrades and enhancements and things.
This is the one thing I'm noticing with the entire Dystopian Age, the technology that you actually write into the background, you're actually throwing some engineering knowledge at it to make it would actually function if you had this wonder fuel, which is really cool to see.
I mean, it's pseudoscience. It's like we're not doing a midichlorian. We're not trying to explain the force or anything. But what we are doing is, we are saying, well, okay, so this giant machine or whatever is ludicrous. There is no way that we could build that now. Yeah. How did they build it? So it's, and that's really it's the way that we try to approach the Dystopian Age is rather than it being what can science let us do? Let's only design it to that. Yeah. It's more about where does our imagination take us? Where does Roberto's vision for things? Where does madcap moments I have in the middle of the night with my notebook scribbling things down? And then we say, well, that's what we want to create. How, within the rules of the universe, how could that be? So we come up with ways that it can happen rather than limit ourselves by what we think could be done.
Yeah, but having it so that whenever you've done that, you have essentially a mechanically operational piece that you can then say, okay, I'm going to upgrade my battleship with this new RJ1027, superpower drive, slot that in there, and now my ship is better, and I actually feel like I know why it's better. Yes. Instead of just saying, here is a gubbin, your ship is better.
Yeah, upgraded engine. Nice. What does upgraded engine mean? Well, actually, what I've given it is this. Yeah. Or maybe I've got an enhanced keel, but it might be like a Styginium alloy or something on the hull that's kind of hardened or made it more responsive or resistant to damage.
Very, very cool. Now, I'm sure you guys are probably currently working away on the rules, busy, play testing and stuff. I have to wonder, do we have sort of a rough ETA whenever people might start getting a glance at rules and such?
So we have, at the moment, I mean, depending on when people are watching this, we're either in alpha testing, which is where we are as of right now when we're filming this, or else it could be the public beta, which is, so there is a public beta test. We did it with with Wild West Exodus. We're going to do it with Dystopian Wars, where we'll do a large release over the summertime. Wouldn't be British summertime wouldn't be an unreasonable time to expect it. Where we will then, you'll have the rules that you can download. There'll be not only that they won't be rough version of the rules, there'll be a fairly tight version of the rules, but then it's there for the public to get involved in, for the community to get involved in, give feedback, tweak, adjust. We make adjustments based on the feedback that people give, and at some point, once that's kind of that process is at an end and the game's looking really lean, then we take the game back into the studio, do some final polishing and tweaking, lay it out in the rulebook, goes to print, and we have Dystopian Wars 3rd edition.
I see. Well, I mean, like I won't lie. Whenever you guys were coming across this time, I was hoping for a sneaky game in before anyone else, but not this time.
Next time for sure. We'll and all the things that I remember you enjoying about Dystopian Wars are still there, and so. Exploding six-sided dice, so you've got that kind of weird and wonderful mechanics. The way that you've got your countermeasures and things to stop torpedoes, and that you're dealing with ACAC and boarding and all that. All of those things are absolutely part of the game.
Can my Union forces still turn on a dime? Or
absolutely, no, absolutely they can. That's one of the main things. That's the thing. Each faction we've worked really hard to make sure that each faction has specific play styles and specific abilities that are unique to them, so that. So there are 8 major factions in the game, and each faction contains multiple nations. You will get a certain feel for it, and if you pick up the Union, they will play differently to the Ottoman Sultanate, who will play differently to the Covenant of the Enlightened, who will play differently to the Prussian Imperium, and so on. They all play differently to each other, but there are certain rules that are common to all of them.
I see. Now, there was one mechanic in the game which I always find a little bit strange whenever I was playing, which was the troop assaults. So you would get in range and you would literally rocket pack guys onto the other ship. Are you guys having a closer look at that, or is it one that you think still works okay?
No. From the ground up, everything has been reworked. Boarding actions is absolutely a thing in the game, but you can't be jumping on board and prizing the ship and then you go sailing it off. That's not something. Your boarding troops are going across to disable, sabotage, attack. So it's an attack. It's a form of an attack rather than which can target specific systems, rather than it being a method to capture the ship. You might, once the ship's disabled after the game, there might then be an ability. There might then be in the narrative, and then we swept back round with the fleet, and we then captured the stricken battleship or whatever it was. But that's not something that happens within the narrative of an actual game.
Okay, that's leading me to think there might be some very interesting campaign stuff you could do with that.
There is. I mean, and one of the things you could then do is you could have, because of the different scales of game that you can have in the Dystopian Age, you could have a follow-up game which could be on the battleship, and that could be using 35mm scale miniatures. There's all sorts that you could then do.
But I'm even thinking for missions, if you were doing like linked games. So let's say we've played round 1 of a narrative campaign. End of the game, I have captured, say, one of your mid-level ships, and my next mission is actually to escort that ship back to home port while being under attack from another faction who doesn't want me to get it back and look at the technology and stuff. That could be a very interesting way to play.
And that kind of narrative push behind the games is absolutely at the heart of 3rd edition. That is where we want every game. We don't want a game to be, well, I lay out my fleet, you lay out your fleet, and we just have at each other. There has to be a reason behind it, because actually that gives you your victory conditions. The victory conditions cannot just be whoever sinks the most wins. That will be one of the things that decides the game, but there will be lots of other elements going on. Maybe, well, why is the fleet there? Maybe the fleet's trying to hold your fleet at bay long enough for something else to be going on behind, or maybe you're trying to escort the ship off, or the civilians are trying to get away on transports, or whatever is going on. There's a mine that you're trying to defend. There's a coastline that you're trying to do a landing assault on.
I was just thinking the landing assault one could be very interesting to play out. having ships that are trying to break through an enemy line to actually get to a point where they can launch troops for a later assault, because then you can tie in the other games that you have as well.
Absolutely.
So, you know, everybody's now landed. You set up your next game in the Wild West Exodus universe, and we're doing a beach assault, running up, trying to actually get troops in. Could be very interesting. Of course, that would require that the 8 nations would then have Wild West Exodus miniatures, but I'm sure that's probably bubbling in the back of your head.
Yeah, one of the things we're not going to do, because we go back to narrative,
Yes.
is what we don't want to do is to shoehorn the Prussian Imperium, the Latin Alliance, the Celestian Empire. We don't want to shoehorn them into Wild West Exodus, barring the occasional guest star or special appearance. But we don't want to put them as factions into that game. We're very happy with the 8 factions of Exodus.
Yeah.
They tell a particular story.
Yeah, and they're very nice.
Keep that going. It's a big world. There are lots of other places. So just like Wild West Exodus was a zoom in on the frontier of the Union, what else is going on in the world? What's happening in the outback of Australia?
So you might zoom in somewhere else?
Indeed.
Okay.
And at 35 mil. And that would be an opportunity to then look at that and go, okay, well, who were the factions? Who are the 8 factions in this part of the world?
Yeah.
And if they shared a common game engine, then maybe you could have tournaments using both.
Yeah, that could be very interesting. Comments below. Tell us, where would you like to zoom in into the world next? Just for curiosity, because I'm sure you're probably wondering that from the player base.
Yes, we have ideas. I'll be very interested to see what people think would be, and see whether or not we're wide of the mark, or whether other people are having similar thoughts to us.
No, you're saying each faction is going to play very differently. I remember when I was playing, the weapon systems for all the different nations also played quite differently. You know, you had some standardized pieces, but there were some ones that were just a little bit whizzy and out there. And you say the Dystopian Age now, with Wild West Exodus, things are a little bit more out there with the technology. Is that going to be coming into the weapon systems?
Yes.
Okay.
So each faction, there are common weapon systems that on your heavy turrets and your light turrets are common weapon systems. So your main guns, rockets, those are common to everybody.
Yes.
Ships, in fact, every nation, every faction, has torpedoes. Some of them make more use of torpedoes than others, but everybody has torpedo technology of some description. Taking that aside, every faction has a unique weapon type. So the Prussians have Tesla weapons, the lightning weapons. The British have torpedo turrets. They have automated torpedo turrets. They can pump
I got a glance at one of those in a previous video with Roberto. It looked like a side loading thing. So like there was an ammo clip on the side of this, just loaded with torpedoes. It looked amazing. Yeah,
the the Commonwealth have kinetic, big railgun type weapons that they use, which are relatively short range but very, 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 very powerful.
So they're pointy.
Yes, which means that it plays into the styles. The Commonwealth tend to close quite quickly to their enemy and then hammer them with rail guns. So each of the factions has their own. The Union. So it's interesting with the Union. So the Union, they've got a variant version of their deck guns. So their deck guns play much more into the ability to cycle through ammunition quite quickly, and they can hammer out a disproportionate number of shots.
Got it.
Like I suppose like a playback to the Western revolver fan type thing. It's not a giant revolver fan, but it plays on that principle that actually you can loose off all of your loaded ammunition in one go, and this kind of shock and awe volley.
Yeah,
and
sounds like America.
Something's going to get hit, but it might then make it more difficult for you to, or you've then got to reload everything, so it will affect your shooting on the subsequent turn. But for that alpha strike or whatever, but I mean, like that just sounds like you could have very interesting interplays with how you're actually moving and firing your ships, because you could have your first set moving up into position, volley fire. That set's now going to be peeling away to reload while the next set comes in, and then trying to just weave them back and forth in front of each other into the firing line. That could look really, really cool on the tabletop. I'm definitely going to have to get myself a Union fleet whenever they come out, because it's my heartland. I still have my old Federated States of America fleet sitting at home. But I'm guessing it's going to be all new miniatures, or are some of the old miniatures going to come across into the new line? So we've got two things. We have the Warcradle Classics, which is where we are reprinting just direct reprints of the back catalogue of miniatures. Yep. They aren't necessarily 100% of a fit for the new game, but we're going to make sure that there are proxy counts as rules for everything, so that people can use all of their miniatures. We don't want people to not be able to use them.
Yeah.
But yes, we've got a whole range of new miniatures that we're developing for Dystopian Wars. The Dystopian Age, because there is that distinct, that stylized, slightly more stylized look to everything.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a more stylized look to all of the nations.
Mm-hmm.
The Latin Alliance have a kind of quite an ornate look to them. They're almost like a big expression of the wealth and power that they have. It could be argued that maybe they're compensating for something, because actually, in terms of the great powers, they're slightly behind some of the other powers. So it's a kind of it's a big show, a big puff chest of how great they are. But we shall see. They've got a lot to prove. The Union, on the other hand, their ships. So yes, they have some of the, like you talk about, the paddle wheels and things, which we loved from the old American design for Dystopian
That was
Wars.
the one thing that grabbed me, was it did look like they had taken riverboats from Louisiana. I went, I can make that a battleship. That's
Yes, I mean there are some design stuff that we've tweaked on it, because actually a Louisiana paddle steamer wouldn't do very well on the rolling Atlantic.
Well, if you look up the old ironclads they used to have, they were not good in seas.
Yeah, so we liked the principle. So, and this is you'll see this with a lot of the Dystopian War ships that we're bringing out. Absolutely, they have some of the archetypes, some of the kind of the familiar themes from the second edition and first edition of the game, but we've updated some of the aesthetics. We've tweaked it a little bit, and we're really excited about some of the stuff that's been developed.
Very, very cool. Well, Stu, I think unless there's anything else...
Oh, no, I've said too much already.
All right, well, I think we will call it at that. Thank you very much. Everybody, tell you what, get your comments in below. Are you an old fan of Dystopian Wars, or are you a new player that's starting to look at it and go, oh, what's this here saying? RJ Punk battles on the water with big naval battleships. I could be interested in that.
What's not to like?
Well, I loved it whenever I was there with you guys. I still love it. I want to play more of it. Get your comments in below. We'll move on. We will see you in the next one.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now, and be sure to check out beastsofwar.com for the latest gaming news and gaming let's plays. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe, and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.